Good evening, everyone. Time is 5 p.m. and the Belton Independent School District Board of Trustees are now convened in a special meeting on Wednesday, February the 18th, 2026. A quorum of members is present. Please note that Ms. Bass will not be joining us this evening. This meeting has been duly called and notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. Public comments? None. All right, moving on to item 3, the business at hand, strategic plan discussion. Dr. Gold.
Yes, thank you all so much for being here. And I know we did feel like we just saw each other at a board meeting, and we're going to see each other again on Monday. Today's special called meeting workshop is really the kickoff of our strategic planning work. And so just want to thank y'all again for approving the charter in our last board meeting. Super excited. I think we have about 65 individuals on our strategic planning team that will come together next week representing students and staff and parents and community across our system. But tonight is the kickoff for the board portion of this. And so y'all remember Jody Duran. Jody did do our Team of 8 training. She's done our training.
And we're glad it's not Team of 8.
The last 2 times. And so we're just really excited and appreciate it. Jody, you're a familiar face. You have led conversations with our Team of 8 a couple of times, and just excited for you to talk to us about the process we're going to be using. And I will tell y'all personally, I'm extremely excited to think about what are the hopes and dreams of our community, our board, as we look to the next 5 years. I can't believe that it will be 2030. I don't know where time goes by, but I'm excited to get the conversation started. So Jody, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. So what I want to do tonight is just give you like a high-level view of what this process will entail. We'll talk about the timeline. And then, of course, I'd like to have some discussion around mission, vision, values, beliefs, and get your, at the end of the day, you all as a board adopt mission, vision, beliefs, values, beliefs. You all have a mission. You have a vision. You do not have a mission statement, and you have values and belief statements. So we'll talk about that. And then the third thing we'd like to do is a SWOT analysis with the board. But I'd like to just start with timeline. And you have a packet in front of you. And so we'll refer to the packet for a few of the items. I did a terrible job by not putting page numbers on here. I am sorry. There is a 1 on page 1, but after that, it's a mess, so I apologize. I apologize for my voice. I've had some allergies, and so I'll just, if you'll be patient with me. So just to begin with the end in mind, the process itself will take us up through probably August 1st. And it could be earlier than that, and maybe it could be July 1st. It just depends on the leadership team's timing and ability to gather all of the data and information they need to roll out the implementation. But we're starting tonight, and this process will involve your community. We will engage your community on 2 different occasions in 2 meetings. I believe one of them's coming up next week on the 25th, and then the second one is on March the 12th. So those are the 2 dates we'll meet with community. We will be meeting with the senior leadership team on those same dates prior to those community meetings, because they probably have the most critical component of the plan. And then once we get to that, once we bypass or finish the second community meeting, we want to schedule a team of 15. I'm going to guess it's about 15 of you, your senior leadership team, and your team of 8, your board. We want to get everybody around the table to talk about the different components. You all are going to be setting the direction. You're going to be setting the strategic objectives, and you'll understand the lingo when you start to see the framework. But essentially, by April 20th, I believe, our goal is to get the board to approve or adopt the mission, vision, values, beliefs statements, as well as the strategic objectives. So once that is complete, then the team gets to go to work on the actual meat of the plan. What I'm saying is probably it'll all come together as we go through the PowerPoint. This is probably a familiar quote. I use it in a team of 8. You saw it probably the last time I was here. It's not enough to do your best. You have to know what to do and then do your best. And I think this is a really good way to just sort of frame out the purpose and reason for strategic planning. It's to provide clarity to your leadership team, to everyone within the organization, so that we understand what it is that we're all aiming for. I am certain that you all have hardworking people in the system, but if they don't know what the direction is, if they don't understand what their role is or what they're supposed to be doing, then they're working really hard on the wrong things probably. And so when we talk about setting the direction, it's making sure that we have systems and processes in place. That Deming tells us 85% of the reasons we see failures within organizations, it's not because of the people typically, it's because of the lack of systems and processes. And that's where a strategic plan can really hone in on the clarity of what we need to spend our time working on, the system and processes. This is also not going to be a surprise. We've talked about these 3 essential roles in an aligned system. Everyone in the system has a role, but not everyone is in every role. So what's the role of the board in this process? Oh, I jumped ahead. What's the role of the senior leaders? What's the role of the Strategic Advisory Committee? We'll talk about each one of those when we look at the balanced scorecard. We have a very different approach to strategic planning. How many of you all have been through a strategic planning process? Okay, yeah, so our approach is very different. Oftentimes the outcome of a strategic plan is a very lofty document that tells you all of the things you have to do, and it becomes more of a checklist. Did we do it or did we not do it? Our approach is more about, it's really a scorecard. It's, are we meeting the goals? Are we progress monitoring our goals? What are the metrics assigned to that? One of the things I hear most often from boards when we talk about strategic planning is that they struggle with how to focus on measures. How do we know that we're meeting the goals that we've set forth? And so the balanced scorecard really is the framework to help us do that. So whether you call it a scorecard, a strategic plan, performance management framework, it should have these same components. Your strategic priorities, and we focus on 4 priorities, and we say these are non-negotiable. Your students are your number 1 priority. Your staff, priority 2. Stakeholders are your priority 3, and financial stewardship, priority 4. When we talk about the second piece of this is strategic objectives and goals. This is where you all provide the direction. You all are responsible for setting goals for the district, but we want to make sure they're SMART goals, and I'll show you how we embed the metrics to those goals. The tactical action and strategies, that's the role of the senior leader team. Once we know what the direction is or what the goal is, then the leadership team will start to formulate action strategies in order to achieve those goals, or at least show progress towards those goals. You also have lead measures and lag measures. Your lead measures are how we're monitoring along the way in a given year and over time. Your lag measures, we're looking at a 5-year strategic plan. So in 5 years, where do we hope? What is the expectation in terms of progress? And so we want to look at, in year 1, what does that look like? In year 2, what does that look like? In year 3, what does that look like? Year 4 and year 5. So the scorecard looks something like this. This is an older model. It's been refined a little bit, but it has all of the components. The very top, you see the beliefs, mission, vision. That's where we really engage the community. And I mentioned we're gonna do a SWOT analysis tonight. We're also gonna do that with the senior leader team and with your strategic planning. I'm using this interchangeably, and I apologize for the confusion. Your strategic planning advisory committee is the same thing as the community group. It's your school community, and so I believe, Dr. Golden, I think you said you've got 60 people.
60.
That's amazing. So I think that's a great number. It's a great group, and so they'll have input into that grade portion of the scorecard.
And Jody, real quick, what we are also doing is a survey is going to go out during this window of time as well, where we're asking questions around the very same questions that we'll be asking our community steering committee group, so that we are also getting broader input into that.
Yeah, that's great. I put in your packet the more updated version of the scorecard. We just refined it just a little bit. Nothing of substance has changed. It's just how we've organized the framework. And so, so you can see, like, literally, it's a 2-pager, but it'll eventually grow into more like 6 to 8 pages once you start to fill in all of the gaps. But as you look at this, the idea is that for each priority, we have 3 strategic objectives. So for example, I'm going to start with, I mentioned already that your strategic planning advisory committee, that's their responsibility. And your plan probably needs to go through 31, a 5-year process. And so priority 1 is about students. Now what you see under there, and I've taken some liberties, and it doesn't have to be this, but I want to show you some alignment to what you currently have as far as your goals. And by the way, the second to last page in here are your goals. So you might flip between the two so that you can see how we're framing this. And again, you don't have to include that statement. If you wanted a different statement there, we could. But I thought it was amazing, the alignment that you already have goals that address our 4 priorities. So defining students, I would say ensuring exceptional learning experience for each and every student is the definition of our priority 1. We define that. Your strategic objectives are what you intend to do. For example, one might be around academics. We want to increase math scores in 3rd grade. Like maybe that's a target area that you need to focus on. CCMR, maybe you want to develop additional career pathways. I'm making things up. But your district objectives under the student priority there will be at least 3 strategic objectives. For each one of those objectives, you can see that second column are the strategic actions or district key actions. This is your tactical team. This is your senior leader team and your superintendent. They'll start to define how they're going to do the work. What are the action strategies? So if a goal is to increase reading, maybe an action strategy is to investigate reading curriculum, implement a new curriculum. That would be an action strategy. How do we measure progress towards that? Well, if we're implementing it, then maybe we're using a beginning or middle of the year, beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of year assessments to show progress towards how we're meeting that goal. Your long term is going to be end of year. Most likely, if it's an academic goal, it's most likely going to be a STAR related measure. Or it could be, I know a lot of districts also embed their NWEA, their MAPS data. I don't know if you all use NWEA.
Well, and y'all jump in anytime, stop and ask questions.
Yep.
Some of this, we have House Bill 3 goals.
Yeah.
That we're required to have. So some of that will have to go within a student priority, but there still could be other priorities. One of the ones we've had recently is continuing to increase student access in the classroom to work that requires critical thinking, really trying to lift up the experiences kids are having to ensure it's rigorous.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that it has to be that, but that's an example
Right.
of non-House Bill 3 related.
That's right.
Now, one could also argue that tracking that is really a leading measure to ultimately changing your lag measure of student performance in the meets and masters category. So again, I don't know where it would fall, but I think that's another example that we have been working on.
And then how, or in other districts, like how many have you seen, how many goals, and then how granular? So should we, for example, like, we would say we want to set a goal, we want to go from a B to an A district, or something, like, is it that high of a level, or is it campus level, or we say we want to see
You're,
such and such improvement?
you're
Like,
looking
where
at,
do we want-
yeah, district level. We won't get to the campus level, and eventually, at some point, you all can choose to cascade this down to the campuses, and then the campuses create the same, plan. The same, they use the same framework.
Which, again, and this, it doesn't have to look like this, by the way.
Yeah, right.
We
You can
make
print
it
it
look
up.
different. But what we wouldn't want to do is not align it with what's happening at the campus level. We've worked really hard in the last 2 years to ensure alignment between campus strategies and measures and how that is in support of the district goals. So we absolutely would want to ensure that there's good alignment in that.
And so just trying to, I might have misheard what you said. So one of them was like improved third grade reading scores. Like, is that a district board adopted objective, or is that something that falls down the cascade?
No, it could be at a grander level. So you're looking at your district data overall. You as a district, you would say, if you wanted to say, go from a B to an A, you're looking at the district, not at the campus level. But obviously, the campuses have to perform at a high level for the district to be to move to a different rating. So what you all are doing here, it's at the district level. Think district, like overall, K-12 across the district data. The other thing, you mentioned House Bill 3 goals. That is a requirement of this House Bill 3, 2019 House Bill 3. It's a requirement that the boards adopt literacy, numeracy, and CCMR goals, specifically around third grade, I want to say. Some districts, and again, we can talk more about this, some districts opt to keep those separate, and then other times some choose to embed it in here as one of the priorities, or one of these strategic objectives.
What are y'all's thoughts on that? Because we've kind of done it separately in a way. We've just said House Bill 3 and embedded it underneath the whatever the other KPMs are for Goal 2.
How often do we do that?
Gabby, when we do the academic progress data, that's in support of those House Bill 3, and then annually y'all reaffirm the goals, and to include the House Bill 3 goals.
Well, aren't those, the HB3 goals, though, if we're looking at, we're the district level here, HB3 goals are gonna be some of your foundational things that feed up into that. I don't see how we could have them separately, because, we're looking at the district level and saying, okay, we want to see our campuses, nobody lower than a B, we need to see that. Well, all of that, the foundation of that is gonna be HB3, because you can't do that here and then say, but we didn't meet HB3. Well, if this is your overall goal, you're gonna have to be meeting your HB3 goals in order to achieve that anyways.
So like our House Bill 3, a lot of them are like your early literacy, your early numeracy. So those really are your, again, leading measures to where you ultimately want to be, and which is we want students to graduate on time. We want them to graduate college, career, military ready. We want them to perform on their EOCs, and so it is foundational. And I don't see why it would not be in here, but just wanted y'all's thoughts on that. Now, I would not want that to be the only
No.
Yeah.
focus,
The
but.
reason I asked was that if we amend it, so if we end up changing the HB3 goal, we have to amend the strategic plan. Change the goal to 2022.
Typically, when you do your House Bill 3, it is really a 5-year look out. And so what should change each year is the from X to Y by Z part of it. And so that's what gets shifted each year. In theory, as you're meeting that yearly target, you're reestablishing the target for the next year.
So how do we, as the board, because we're gonna be at the district level, not at the campus level, how do we take the input that we're gonna be getting from our community? That's starting next week with, you said 60 people. You know, we're trying to look here. The community is gonna be at a much lower level. You know, they're
Yeah.
coming from campuses, they're coming with kids in the system. So how do we feed that information up to come up with the overall arching
Yeah.
plan?
So.
Or goal, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. The SWOT analysis, that tool or that process is pretty enlightening. You know, we do it with the board, we do it with the senior leader team, and then we'll do it with the community.
Okay.
And we gather all this information, like what are perceptions around the district, the strengths of the district, weaknesses, what do they view as opportunities and potential threats? And we meet with each group separately. So we start to look at what are some common themes that we continue to hear, you know, across the 3 different groups, and that really we need to really focus on that and identify. So if we heard over and over again, we need more career pathways, we need more opportunities for industry-based certifications. I'm just giving that as an example. If we heard that from all 3 groups, that might be something that's important to include in your plan.
Okay.
But I also want to say, we do recommend that you limit each priority to 3 strategic objectives. We've seen some districts add 1 more, maybe 4, but really if you can keep it at 3, and the reason being, because once we go through this, there's going to be a total of 12.
Right.
But if everything is important, then nothing's important. So we want to, like, what are the most important things that we want to focus on related to students? What are the most important things we want to focus on related to staff, related to our stakeholders, parents, related to financial stewardship? So that, the SWOT will be very informing for you as a board to help anchor on those strategic objectives.
So I think big picture, it's synthesizing that data and looking for your largest
Yes.
common threads
Right.
Yes.
that then can inform this.
Yeah.
Back to HB3, I mean, my initial reaction was, oh, I don't want to see the HB3 on here, right? But we're already doing it, and we should be, the things should go on here, that they should work hand in hand, right? Like, we can't have something on here that's not going to get us to our HB3. I'm not necessarily wed to it, that was just my initial knee-jerk reaction, right? Yeah, as we go through the conversation,
Yeah.
you know, I'd certainly be open to it, but
Yeah.
that's just my first reaction.
Why mention it when that's the floor anyway?
Because it's mandated, right?
But I mean, if your
Yeah, I
goal is
would-
beyond that, why have?
I would tell you, I don't want to meet those goals.
Understand
I
that,
want to
yeah.
meet the higher. I want to meet higher than those
Right.
goals.
So if it's
So I
the
don't want that
floor-
to be the target, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
but right now, it is the target, so why mention it if it's the
Let's
floor?
say-
I mean, do we have to mention it by law?
Well, I
So
mean,
it
you
sounds
have to
like-
adopt
We have to adopt the
it by
HB3
law. I mean,
goals by law.
We don't have to adopt this.
We can, you have to adopt, you have to adopt, whether we call it goals or we're calling it a strategic objective, you
Right.
have to adopt that. We can always put an addendum to what the House Bill 3 goals are, because you do have to
Yeah.
adopt those.
Yeah, we can't come up with a strategic plan or a goal and look at HB3 in the rearview mirror and be like, well, we don't care about those.
Yeah.
We're gonna go over here and do what we
No, no,
wanna
no,
do.
yeah,
That's not gonna
no, they
work.
together.
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
here.
Yeah, they work
But
together.
if you think of the big picture of what we want to accomplish as a district, working on an early literacy goal alone is not going to get to all the other things that are important to this
Right,
community
right.
and to our district. And so, we can come back on and show you some examples of where we could put it if we don't want it to be these top three. Since we are having to do those anyway, we would do those no matter what. So we can come back and show you some examples of how we could present that.
I mean, my initial thought is it was gonna feed into something that we have on here anyway.
Has to.
Right,
It
right.
could.
It would be a leading measure to
Right,
it.
right, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a measure. That's, I
Yeah.
mean, it's what it, they call it a goal. It's actually just a measure.
Yeah, because it is not your big overarching goals for the district.
No.
It is truly leading indicators on overall academic improvement in literacy, numeracy, and CC1.
It should be it's minimal.
All right, so it's a column 3 item.
Or it could be a
Yeah.
asterisk. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jody, this may be getting ahead of things, but when you start talking to the committee, and you know, we talk about meets and masters and, you know, that, remember those graphs we talked about the other day? When you start looking at those things, and you got one campus that, you know, has a pretty low percentage, another campus doesn't have any masters. It's easy for someone from the public to come in here and say, well, look, I want them all to master it. You know, do you talk to the committee about realistic goals? Because, you know, House Committee 3, we talk about percentages. You know, we want the third graders to be at a 75% or whatever it may be, right?
That's part of the SMART measurement, right? It's gotta be
Yeah.
attainable.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
100% of anything that we're gonna say is probably not attainable.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, and many of y'all were a part of the process last time. You know, it was really anchored in, what are your hopes and dreams for your children as they go through Belton ISD? And the last time we did this, there was not we want a certain score on STAR. That did not come out at all. It was really bigger than that. It was, we want more than that. Doesn't mean we don't also want high-performing schools. But it really was around, you know, I want my students to be able to have enriched learning experiences where it cultivates curiosity into what pathways might they be interested in, and that they have options in those pathways, and that we don't act as a ceiling to a student's pursuing their dreams. That's where that pursuing their dreams piece came from. You know, it could be, you know, we'd love to see more choice of, you know, opportunity. It could be, I want to make sure my student graduates and can be career ready and have, you know, a wealth of internship opportunities. So last time was much broader than just a score, because there's so much to your fine arts, so much to wanting kids to be safe in school, so much to so many other things. That's why last time, even facilities came out as a priority from that strategic planning work. Engaged learning experiences came out from that. So I'd be shocked if it was purely all about a certain score, but yet also I would be shocked if it wasn't about pursuing excellence for the students in this community, because they deserve that.
And we want to make sure the community understands their role in this process. It's not to establish the goals. We want them to understand the framework, but the goals or the strategic objectives belong to the board. You all set the direction. You adopt the goals, and then the administration works to achieve those goals. And we will talk about like SMART goals, like this is, how do we create a goal? So I hear what you're saying, but I wanna make sure the community understands that they're not gonna get into the meat of this, of the scorecard. Their role is to help inform mission, vision, beliefs.
What in the SWOT analysis will come, however, is when we hear the pain points in the district, when we hear
Yeah.
what's going well and people don't want that to change, that's going to absolutely inform
Right.
this. They won't be decision makers in that, but
Right.
those voices will help also inform. If it, and I'm making this one up, if it's about ensuring we have every pathway allowable under the state of Texas rules, then, and we hear that as a common thread, then that gives us insight into what need to be some of the things we focus on. So, and I also want to say, it doesn't mean out of this process, our vision statement gets thrown out. It could be reaffirmed. And so, just so that y'all know, I am very committed to that vision. Like, we have done very clear strategic work around moving us towards that vision. It could be that we look at, is that really a mission statement? And it is a vision shorter? We have a tagline that we talk about, inspiring dreams, empowering futures, for example. Is that something people can remember and it resonates around? So it's really getting feedback on that. Is this still the direction we're moving? And so it could be that it just reaffirms that that's our vision.
Right.
And we buy into that, and we just want you to do it better, faster, a little different, but get to that. So, our values and belief statements are great. There are a lot of them, and, what might come out of it is, are there really priorities that we really coalesce around these different SWOT analysis that help, okay, maybe they get narrowed a little bit and more clear, and then therefore more impactful. So, I don't want you to think all of it gets thrown out. It might be that it's affirmed and it's more, here are the areas within it we wish you'd focus more on.
And thank you for saying that. For belief statements, our process, we encourage that the board adopts six belief statements representing each of your stakeholder groups. So your students would be one. What do we believe about students? What do we believe about faculty and staff? What do we believe about parents? What do we believe about campus administrators? What do we believe about central office and superintendent? What do we believe about our board? Those would be the 6 stakeholder groups that we create belief statements around. You don't have to adopt that model. You can keep what you have if what you have it continues to resonate with you. But that's a decision for you all to make. If the desire is to do a refresh of your belief statements, then we will do that with the community at our meeting.
Have questions or thoughts on that?
We probably need some
So
direction.
Just to clarify, so what I'm hearing some board members have somewhat of a hesitancy, probably in a good reason, because we want to hear what our stakeholders, what our parents and that think of. But what we're doing right now isn't going to be solidified. This is a piece of the process, right? And
That's
then we
correct.
can come back to it after, but we're just giving a start and some direction to begin with.
Yep.
Is that,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep, but I will need clarity on whether or not we want to move in the direction of a refresh of your belief statements.
Let's talk about that. Our board, those were meaningful, those were adopted. The way in their current form, they're written as, so we value these things, so the things in red, those are the things we value. So if we value continuous improvement, It's anchored in a belief that a mindset of continuous improvement should be modeled by our staff and cultivated in our classrooms. So belief statements in this process are a little bit different than this, but this was really the board's adoption of really shared values, and it came out of the strategic planning process that we heard. So it kind of bubbled up what were the priorities, and then we brought that to y'all. You gave us feedback. We did a little bit of back and forth on some wordsmithing, and then we landed on these. So I really would love your thoughts on how do you feel they're guiding the district? To me, this is about how we behave. These beliefs guide how you behave in the system. And so thoughts on impact. Do you think there's too many? Do you think they're still true?
I wasn't here, obviously, whenever the board went through that process. My initial thought is a refresh. One thing I feel like we've said here and there the last few meetings is maximizing resources. And I don't know, I feel like that would be one to be considered, to be put in along with a refresh.
That's priority 4. What you just said is your priority 4 in
It'll
the
come out in
strategic
your
plan.
goal.
And there will be 3 strategic objectives specifically around financial stewardship, whatever that is. You all will define that in a strategic objective.
So can we peel off for just a second, and maybe the 3 of y'all can talk, and maybe you 3 can talk, and let's just quickly talk about how meaningful have those values and beliefs been to our system. Maybe even talk about where you see them show up. And then let's come back and talk about, do we feel good? Are we comfortable with us revisiting this based on feedback from our community and where we are today versus where we were 5 years ago? So let's stop for just a little bit, if that's okay.
What do you got for me, sir? Well, I will tell you, start at this one
Sorry, I'm so in the way.
and look at it and say, first, is there anything you would
Not one anymore?
take off the list? I think that's where you start.
Yeah, I agree.
And realizing where this came from. This did not come from the board. This came from the community. And so I'd first look at it and say, is there anything that we'd want to remove? And then the other part to this, that when the community, in those 2 meetings with those 60
They'll be
people,
moving.
okay,
Do we do?
we're going to have to pay attention to what she said is,
Yep.
we've got these, what else bubbles up in those meetings?
They all show up.
And then we take those, compare them back to here and see, okay, are there things here? I don't think it's our place to change this at this moment. I think we have to be open to what does our community say?
No, I agree.
And then compare what they say to what we see here. Does that make sense? And then come back and say, okay, guys, you know, we heard, you know, a lot around this one. We didn't hear anything. I'm not going to point into it, but we heard a lot about something that's nowhere in here. Okay, if it's nowhere in here, but it kept coming up, then we need to look at either adding, changing.
I like tables of 8.
I mean, here's the thing about it. It's not written in stone. And that was never the idea of the Journey of a Graduate, was that we set forth a plan and put it in concrete and said, okay, from here on out, this is what Belton ISD is going to do. It was much more fluid to say, we have an end goal of the Journey of a Graduate, that the idea of the Journey of the Graduate was not what happens when they walk across the stage and graduate. That's what you have to remember. The Journey of the Graduate idea was what happens in kindergarten, what happens in first
That's a
grade.
strong number.
Those are all culminating in him or walking across the stage, being
They say
ready
yes, but then they don't come to the first
contribute
meeting.
to society,
It's not
do
uncommon.
whatever it is that they're going to go do. But it was never about the end game is getting them across that stage with, you know, honors. And it was every step along the way, did we meet that student's needs? Did we give them opportunities to do stuff that they wanted to do. One of the reasons that we changed the way that we do GPAs and all that was because we had these extremely smart students who told us their biggest regret was they wanted to take art, welding, and other class music, but couldn't do it because you're the smart kid, and if I do that, you're going to get valedictorian, and I'm not. And we were like, that's
a
horrible.
great idea.
I can't. Our salutatorian told me that point blank. She told me, she goes, I just wanted to take welding, but I could not do it. I was like, well, that is right.
Well, to answer your first question, we don't have, looking at this, we don't have anything that jumps off the pages. I want to get rid of this.
I think they're terrific.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like,
There's some of them that can maybe be included to make it more memorable.
Yeah.
Like innovation and inspiring instruction, and then continuous improvement, like innovation and continuous improvement. Right?
I kind of see them
There's
together.
some of them that are
Yep.
similar.
Yep.
And I think when you simplify it and make something more memorable, like each and every, like that one to me is like ingrained.
For sure, and I think that speaks Penguin Project. You know, everything that we do, the Matter Champions, everything like that.
Yeah.
But I agree. The instruction is the verb. Workforce are our people. Space is our facilities. Yeah, and then our community. And this is more the how. I kind of agree.
Those two.
I agree with you, Riley. I think those two kind of flow together. And this is like the top.
That's absolutely. But what I hate, and you guys heard this probably the very first time I was here, we didn't go over this, is that each and every, instead of on their goals, stakeholders should be not be number one. They're just like even she presented it tonight, and if
Students, putting students first.
exactly. It goes
But remember, they're
students,
not.
staff.
But remember, they're not in order. That's not a
I
number.
do know that, but there's something important about the order that you state.
Well, you can
And-
change the
and
order,
memory.
but they're not. When we did it, they were never put in an order of least to greatest, or they're there just for the number to be able to say, in our KPMs, how are we doing on goal number one?
I get that, but there's something. You gotta.
All right,
Yeah.
All right.
How about, thank you. But I think that we have to be, and I can see that. I guess I'm a little different because I was in the meetings and I knew the back history of it, which is hard if you weren't in the meetings. That the numbers were from the very beginning were said, hey, these are not in any order. These are. But when we
know
discuss
that.
KPMs,
We know that, but if anybody walks in from the community, the 13,000 students,
right?
have they heard the backstory? You know, I mean, that's
Right.
what so I get it. There is, I get it because I'm sitting here, but if I'm someone that walks in and looks at the goals from the community, I'm like strength and stake. What the heck what are we talking about? Stakeholders. You know, I'm a layperson. So it's a small thing, but that's one thing that I would change.
Okay.
Just switch them up. I don't think it'd be that hard to print some new posters and put students. I do think it's cool to listen and see how the vision that you guys have had in the past has aligned with outcomes. It's kind of surprising to me, like the journey of the graduate and things like that.
Right.
What I do worry about
I know,
is if
Jody,
that's
will bring us back
gone
together.
so far now that
Yeah, when you're
we've
ready.
missed some of these,
I'm ready when you are.
the state grading, and I don't want that to be a focus, but at the same time, it does have huge impact on the
It does.
district.
Well, that's what we're talking about HB3. HB3 is not your goal, but it's part of it. I mean, because it has to be. No. It's not even. It's foundational to it. It's like saying, your goal is not to, your goal is not to, be able to lift 200 pounds. Your goal is to get stronger, but those two things are still going to go hand in hand with it. And so that's where you have to look at that and say, okay, now that the hard part for us has been the constant shifting of the goalpost with the state and how they change things when we have, it's fine, life's full of change, but, we really had a great direction going. Test scores were going up, and then they changed how they were gonna measure the test scores, and all of a sudden, it was like playing a game, and you beat me 10-3, but I came back and said, you know what, but here's the deal. Now first downs are worth more than touchdowns, so I actually beat you. Wait a minute, no, that's not the rules that we agreed to when we started this game. And that killed not just us, that's basically every district, except, and I have said this and I'll continue to say it, if you want to tell me a district's overall score per campus, I can tell you what the economic situation of that town is. I don't even have to know the name of the town, because it holds up across the state 98% of the time. And it's just a fact. That's why people in the Rio Grande Valley have such a hard time with it, because they're poor. I mean, they are. It is what it is. You can't change that.
Yeah, but what we could do on the continuous improvement, I'd like to see one of those up there, is maybe instead of stating grades for the campuses and everything, in alignment with both continuous improvement in each and every student, is according to that graph that we had, it shows that in reading, our students improve from third grade to
Yep.
and doesn't.
Right.
And so if we could say that each and every student will, go
Right.
along those lines.
Well, and that is, yeah, so that is a goal that, goes into our measurements.
Ready?
Everything is, again, we're up here, you're in campus level there, but that is that, we want to see every campus
Okay.
improve.
Okay.
Ready?
We are
Not
ready.
just in math,
Sorry,
but
Jody.
across the board.
That's
We want to
okay.
see
Thank you.
continuous improvement in every single campus.
Chris, are you talking for this group? Brandon? Could you read the short stick and then, okay.
You're open to review.
That's the short answer.
That was a lot of conversation, but
Yeah,
great
no, I mean, I think
summarization.
they're great. We will certainly want feedback on, are they encompassing everything, and are we having things that is missing? And then, do we have anything in there that shouldn't, could we somehow trim them down to 3 or 4, so that it gets and try to make them, obviously they're aspirational in nature, but how do we make them more tangible or at least translate them to some other tangible document or principles and campus that we can say in there. What is really but I think we should be open to getting feedback on this.
I saw heads, no, I'm about to go grab a bag myself. That seemed like that was resonating. Is that somewhat what y'all were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're terrific for the most part. I do think something more concise, instead of in the values and beliefs particularly. Some of them might be, we talk about how some of them might be combined, innovation and continuous improvement or something like that, because they're so similar, but would be open as well. I brought up that I still think that it would be nice to align and put students first on our goals rather than stakeholders. That's just a personal thing with me. I understand that it has nothing to do with first, second, and third, but even tonight in our presentation, it was mentioned students first for a reason. I think that comes for a reason. Students and then staff and then stakeholders. I know, so that's just a personal thing there, but.
Well, I felt like that aligned with feedback we had heard in different board meetings from different board members over time. So glad that part is resonating, because it felt like that was more aligned with just board conversation. Because the way we did ours in the past, it really was not meant to be in a hierarchy, in order, but that sometimes causes confusion. And so sounds like in terms of that starting out as priority number 1 is resonating. Is that fair? Okay. So I think absolutely let's revisit values and beliefs, and is what I'm hearing, openness to that, and then being able to bring some feedback back to the board on that.
So, and just for clarity, for my benefit, and I pulled up one of the districts that we've worked with, Socorro ISD, large district in the El Paso area. This is an example of what the belief statements would look like. We prioritize all the stakeholder groups, because we want we want everybody to see themselves in this plan. Like they own some of the responsibility and accountability for the work. So is that a direction we go, or is the preference to anchor on what you already have and condense it, or maybe refine the current structure? And again, there is no right or wrong. This is a customized process. It's what's important to you all and what you all would like to have in this plan.
So what we talked about was, if we look at this, the values and beliefs, I'll leave the goals alone, but if we look at the values and beliefs, what we said here was, if you look at this, is there anything you don't want on here first? If there is, then we need to talk about it. And when we built these originally through the journey of graduate, like I told them, it was never something written in stone. We never said, hey, we're putting this in place and 50 years from now we want this on the wall the way we wrote it. This was done by community input. And in taking that, I think that we go back to our community in those meetings with these values and beliefs and see what bubbles to the top, what resonates. Do they look at this and say, we don't like this, or we want to see more of this? We're going to get that from the community.
Yeah.
And then because that's where these came from originally. Yes, some of us were here when we did it, but these were not ours. This was taking community feedback.
That's right.
And saying, this is what we're hearing our community say to us. We're just doing the same thing. We're going back and saying, I don't think we're going to rebuild this entire thing, but a refresh based on what does the community, not what I think. I don't think what I think matters. I don't think, honestly, nobody sitting around this doesn't really matter. We have to represent what the community tells us is important to them in here. So I think one of the things we do with them is go back to them and say, hey, what would you change? What if this is confusing? Sometimes I wouldn't change it, but it's confusing because I don't understand what y'all mean by this. Everybody in the community should be able to look at it and understand what it means. And 5 years ago it made sense. Maybe to some of the people now it doesn't. And I think that's where we have to start on that one.
Okay.
Joey, when I read those up there, what is that, Socorro, is that what it's called?
Mhm.
That's in El Paso?
Uh-huh.
When I read that, the thing that, there's one word that comes out at me that I like that's in there. That's not enough. Say again?
Shall?
Yeah. I mean, this is what we believe, but it's not saying what you're gonna do to
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah.
So I like that. And here's another question that I asked Dr. Goldman a moment ago. And you, for lack of a better description, you teach these things, you know, you try to, you put on these clinics and you put on seminars. And when I first got on the board, you know, you have to go to that, talking about goals and all that. And I always tell you to do maybe 4, you know, don't about 10. But we have 7 values, so is that also recommended that you keep it down? I mean, what if you had 20 values and beliefs?
Yeah, it needs to be concise. Again, if everything's important.
So what do you recommend? I mean, what do you guys?
I think what you all have is really good. I think 6, ours is 6, yours is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, you know.
Do you like the shall?
I love the shall.
Yeah.
For us, we're speaking life into
I do too. I like
students,
the shall.
parents.
That's because you're a lawyer.
Yeah, right.
And you like
Well,
using that
probably,
word.
I'm glad you said it.
Shall endeavor to. I know exactly where he's going with that.
Well, I mean, it's,
No, you're right.
I know if I'm a principal and I look at that, I say, okay, this is what I need to do.
Yeah, I think the hope of strategic planning is that you speak out boldly what we want to be in our community for our students and our staff. And, you know, shall is bold. Yes, in policy, we look to, is it shall? Is it may? You know,
Must.
shall is speaking into, and I don't think it's far off from some of the values and beliefs we've written. It might be worded differently. So I think you and I could talk about, so how do we
frame that.
honor the voices that certainly helped inform
Yeah.
this, and see if we can't narrow and write them based on feedback in a more, maybe more powerful, more visible. You
Yeah.
can see it more.
Yeah.
You can imagine it more.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's just an example, and then you can also see right below, like, we're building this out, and it's gonna, every one of these boxes will have, something in there. But that last column is really where you define the measure. That first column, the strategic objective, is more broad-based. It's sort of the overarching goal, but the metrics comes in on the back end. So, it must be measurable. Every one of these need to be measurable, which is what takes so long for the administration to build out, and then also to we'll want to wait for STAR scores to come out and look at trend data. What does trend data tell us about our trajectory in other areas? Yeah, there you go. So you can see, so for priority 1, Becca, scroll back to the other side. The big overarching was students grow and support each, grow and support each student with robust opportunities. That's how they defined the priority. And so then we have 3 strategic objectives that the board adopted. Improve academic achievement for all students. All students are college and or career and or military ready. And then the third one, so you can see they have 3 specific strategic objectives, and then the action strategies, which is defined by the leadership team. Your progress measures is what the leadership team reports to you all on a monthly basis already. So, like,
Right.
What are we doing? How are we progressing on this particular goal? I think you all already do that now with your goals, or with your, and then of course your long term. So we're looking out 5 years. So X to Y by Z, you can see what our target is over the long term. So we'll build this out, and that'll take a little longer. But what you all will be asked to eventually adopt, probably April 20th, if we can swing it by then, is the mission, vision, values, beliefs, and strategic objectives, that first column. Everything else, you all will not adopt the second and third columns. The fourth, or that last column, you could adopt, but after at least 1 year of implementation. So we don't recommend, because we're looking at, we don't necessarily have all of our data, and in some cases, we have to establish baseline data in some of the other priorities. So, but if you choose to adopt that fourth, or in this case, the fifth column, your lagging measures, you would do that at the, following first year of the implementation. Okay, all right, we can go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, I think that's where we were. And so again, we're honoring the current goal by naming the priority, what the goal was: ensure exceptional learning experience for each and every student. And then we'll identify strategic objectives for 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. Priority 2, staff. Again, looking at your current goals, you have a staff goal. And to me, it fits perfectly as a defined priority: attract, retain, and support a world-class team of employees. Your strategic objective, you could break down retaining, supporting, building capacity. It depends on what we think is the most important thing we need to be doing as it relates to staff. So, for example, are you all a TIA district?
We're in process. We haven't been validated yet. We won't know until this time next year
Okay.
if we can validate.
So you might say decrease the turnover rate or increase retention rate, however you want to word that, would be like a strategic objective. The long-term measure, you would be looking at potentially the turnover rate. What does that look like over time? But one of your action strategies could be implement a structure for a teacher incentive pay. That could be, I'm just giving you examples just to frame out
to be.
what it could be.
Implemented.
I'm not saying that it has to be that.
Phases of it, build out the next phases of it.
Yep. Priority 3, stakeholders. You had one for stakeholders too. Strengthen and support the engagement of all stakeholders in pursuit of the BISD vision.
Jody, quick question on how each of the priorities have, at least for this exercise, been defined. Can we go back one?
Mhm.
Where could there be input into, if we wanted to wordsmith one of those?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because this notion of world-class
Yeah.
has just been fuzzy for whatever reason in the system. What does that really mean? And if y'all recall, we attempted to develop some competencies around what that meant. Interestingly, they pretty much were the journey of a graduate competencies. You know, you don't graduate from high school and all of those competencies are perfect. Like, we continue to grow those competencies through adult life and through challenges and through things that we face. And so, just want to know, could part of
Yes.
this be wordsmithing some of those?
100%. I just embedded those because they were currently in here. So that's part of this process, is to define or redefine staff or any one of these priorities. Okay, so you've got your stakeholder group, same thing. I'm just showing you each of you'll have 3 strategic objectives for each priority. You'll have 3 action strategies for each strategic objective, and then we'll have our measures. And we recommend that because we can, this is pretty lofty as it is, but we want to just make sure we stay very focused. Everything that you all talk about at board meetings should be focused on what becomes defined in here. There shouldn't be, if it's not in the plan, it shouldn't be a priority. It's not in the plan. That's why we've got to get this right and make sure that how we define strategic objectives is exactly what the board sees as the direction for the district.
Could really even see a standing agenda item.
Yeah.
Focused on, you know, we've been doing a goal update at different times. Sometimes it's workshops, sometimes it's been in a report. So it could be, again, we could still do it that way, or it could just be a standing couple of reports, potentially even underneath a particular one. So, okay.
And I mentioned earlier the SWOT analysis will help inform some of these priorities. And so we'll use that information, that framework, to help define 3.1, 3.2, 3.3 as we start to hear things. And let me also say, we generally start with the leadership team helping to identify those strategic objectives, and then we bring it to the board to ask you all to validate and adopt or change. Is it the direction that the board is wanting to go? So we're not going to sit in a room and come up with these sitting around a table. It will be very hard to do that. We will come to you with some recommended language for 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, and then it'll allow us to have more discussion around, are we on the right? Let's crystallize these. Did we identify the right strategic objective from the board's perspective, if that makes sense?
So could almost see either a report or a workshop where there's discussion around that, gathering of more
Yes.
input. I know there will also be a team of 15 meeting.
Yes.
So lots of opportunity along the way to refine that, so that when we get to bringing it to you for action,
Yeah.
you've had input into that prior to.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and then the last one, financial stewardship. And then you all had a goal specific to that. But again, any of this can be changed. I wanted to show how we can embed what you currently have. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's really good stuff that you already have. And so does it still fit, or does it need to be refined? And so we mentioned progress monitoring um, the strategic plan. Each month, so where you all fit into this model is the plan and the check. We're planning, we're doing the work, y'all are gonna help us identify those strategic objectives. But then the do and the act is really the senior leader team. They're identifying the actions and they're doing the work. They're coming to you all with each month presenting any portion of the strategic plan, showing you progress towards those goals, or lack of progress. It could go either way, and if we're not making progress, maybe we need to pivot and do something else. So that's the act phase, where the tactical team adjusts and makes changes in order to try that again. So this is just the model that we recommend, but you all live in the plan and check portion of this.
Right.
The senior leader team lives in all of these.
Which is this is the improvement cycle.
Yes.
We say it a little bit differently in working with our district leaders and campus leaders. We call it a plan, do, study, act cycle, but feel like this is really aligned to the work we do in campus improvement planning and department improvement planning. So it aligns perfectly with what we have already been working with them on.
I just think it's important that the board remembers, if you can go back to that slide, that where we live, you know, we live and plan and check, and that's it.
Yeah.
We don't, and I mean, that's an important thing for us to remember.
Yeah.
That's our two worlds that we live in, and the check, we didn't always do. We got end of year reports, this goes back a long time. We used to get end of year reports about star grades and all that, and what bubbled up through that was, well, wait a minute. We didn't hear about anything until the end of the year, and now it's too late to say, well, what's going on? And that's where they started bringing in the KPMs and, letting us know at every board meeting, these are the checks that are going on so that we're not surprised. I'm not being mean, but if a campus has trouble at the end of the year, there's absolutely no reason the board should be surprised because we've been watching the data all year long. And again, we just look at it. They show it to us, we ask questions, but then they see it too, to go in and fix and say, okay, I've got a problem in this third grade classroom right now. We have to fix this problem. And I think it's important, when we talk to the community, that they also understand that about the board is, hey, we plan and we check. We don't, I have no business going on campus telling a principal or a math teacher how to do their job. I don't know how to do their job. I don't want to do their job.
Thank you for that. So I think we already talked about beliefs, but I want to talk about mission and vision with you guys. So it's interesting that you all don't have a mission statement, and that's probably by design. And you can choose to keep, you can choose not to have one. But my wondering is, your mission typically is sort of your North Star. It really defines for your district, what it is that we're here to do. A lot of times I see campuses create their own mission statements. Every campus has their own mission statement. And when that happens, there's gonna be misalignment because we're not all working towards the same thing. So this is my opinion, and it's not right or wrong. I think not having a mission statement we lose some clarity in what our direction is. What's our mission? What's the vision? But what's interesting is, and Dr. Golden and I have had this conversation, because when you go to your website, I see your visions, like in this room, I see your vision statement. I see like this sort of mantra. And I think you do have a mission statement. I think you just don't call it that. And I think you have a vision statement, but I don't think you call it that. Based on the way we define mission and vision. And so for us, when we go into districts and we work on a mission or a vision statement, some districts don't have either, by the way. And so if we're building from the ground up, this is the starting place. Your mission should be a one statement describing the reason your organization exists. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but we don't want complicated words. It should be an 8th to 10th grade level. It should include certain building blocks, but it's your guiding star. It is why we do this work. It is our purpose. The building blocks that we talk about are your actions. There should be an action, which is basically the big verb. You should have a beneficiary who benefits from your work. And in the case of school districts, who's our beneficiaries?
Our learners.
Our learners, bottom line.
Was Socorro's today's learners, tomorrow's leaders?
Mhm,
Is that what it said?
That was their vision.
That was their vision?
Because and I know I've been doing vision and mission work in districts for a really long time, both at the campus and district level. There's lots of schools of thought on the definition of a vision and a mission. When I look at this definition, I feel like I see our current vision statement.
I do too.
So I'm sorry, ma'am.
No, I just would love y'all's opinions on, I mean, we can certainly go either direction on vision, mission. Even more important is what we are currently calling a vision. Is that our work? Is that,
Yeah, is
do
that
we
mission?
get, is that it? Because it was so important to this community that enrich their communities was a part of a vision statement. I've never been anywhere where that was. And I now know why that's there, because this is an incredibly civic-minded community. This is a community that finding volunteers is not hard. Caring about your neighbor is obvious. Whether we're talking Helping Hands or we're helping all these different groups. And so that is led and that is guided action. I mean, every athlete in the system is expected to have and required to have community service hours. And, so it's really guided. So, yes, want your thoughts on, are y'all comfortable with us pursuing whether it's a vision or a mission statement? And thinking about that mantra, and more importantly, getting some feedback on, are we headed in the right direction with this?
So the second to last page of your handout, it's your vision and goals. But if you look at the verbiage in your vision, your action is to empower. Each and every learner is your beneficiary. And what service, problem, or cause are you working towards to pursue their dreams and enrich their communities? To me, this is a mission statement. When I read that, I'm like, wow, that's powerful. But to me, that's your North Star.
Y'all were both involved in it. Do y'all want to give the history of why it's called a vision statement, not a mission
You know
statement?
what, I can't remember.
It was Matt's preference. I mean, I think it was superintendent preference not to have a mission statement.
I remember the discussion about it being vaguely, part of it was the feeling, because we did have a mission statement prior.
We did.
Yeah, we did. And I remember the discussion centering around a lot of us saying that you walk into corporations and you see their mission statement and it's on a plaque that nobody ever sees anymore and nobody cares about. And that the idea that we called it a vision statement was just wordsmithing, basically just saying, we're not going to put this on a plaque and then forget about it. It's going to be our North Star. This will be what we look at all of the time versus the corporate ones that have just gotten kind of actually wordy and they're horrible, by the way.
Or the trendy language,
Right.
Successful in a global society. Like,
Yeah, yes, exactly. So, I mean, I don't know if that makes sense to call it vision or do you call it mission vision? I mean, you call it both of them. I mean, but I don't see.
I don't care what we call it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
I'll change it.
Because it's still, I think everybody.
There's buy-in into it, right?
I think everybody here, when they read that and our community reads what the vision is, I don't know that I could change any word in there. I mean, I wouldn't change anything there.
I wouldn't change the wording. I might redefine it as your mission. And
Sure.
and your vision statement,
See what
Inspiring-
AI has to say about that.
Inspiring dreams, empowering futures, to me, is your vision statement. Vision statements are short phrases or one-sentence statement describing clear and inspirational desired future state. It can be as short as 2 to 3 words, avoid buzzwords. It needs to be inspirational, aspirational, clear, memorable. And here's some examples. You mentioned Socorro's, Tomorrow's Leaders Learning Today. You can see, these are their vision statements. It's short, concise, it's memorable. And everybody can anchor on that. Every person in the district, in your community, can anchor on that. And inspiring dreams, empowering futures, to me is pretty powerful. When I looked at this, I was like, ooh, that's their mission, ooh, that's their vision. I think it's just,
Great, let's go with
I
it.
think it's just
I mean,
redefining it.
eventually, I mean, we've got we've got vision, goals, values, beliefs.
Yeah.
And now mission, right? So, I don't know, it's a lot. It's almost too much. Like, if whatever can simplify this.
Yeah.
If we need to just take out vision and put mission, great. But I don't know that we need to add a fifth one. I don't know, that's just.
It was similar to our conversation of part of the challenge is we have so many guiding documents, that's how we've been referring to these as, that sometimes what I hear from leaders in our system is, what am I focused on? Am I focused on the goals? Am I focused on, now I've not heard concern with whether it's vision or mission. I don't think that will be controversial in our system.
Yeah.
I think there's connection to it.
Yeah.
And so we already have we called it a mantra. It kind of is stuck. So if we choose to call it vision versus mantra, I don't think it's an add-on.
Right.
More importantly, is that really what we're about? Should we create the conditions in which we inspire the dreams of students in what could be in their future careers and when they leave us? Should we be about each and every one of our students? And now each and every has certainly been grabbed onto in our school district, so that, the conversation's been sometimes you get lost in an all. If you just have an average, you're gonna lose potentially each and every, and so I think that's resonated. I'd be shocked that somebody wants that to go away. Clarity on what that means might be needed. So I'm not hearing, let's just not overly complicate it.
Yeah.
Let's not make it a million things to memorize. If we call it a vision versus a mission, I'm not hearing really strong opposition to looking at that. Everybody?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right.
All right. Okay, I'm pulling up my computer because I'm gonna type. We're moving into the SWOT for the board. Let me find, what did I do with it? There it is. So I want you all to take just a couple of minutes and individually jot down what you perceive to be the strengths of the district. Maybe 3 strengths, maybe if each one of you do 3 strengths. Weaknesses or challenges that you're dealing with. What are 3 weaknesses? Opportunities. When you think about those challenges or weaknesses, is there an opportunity that we might do something differently in order to turn that weakness into a strength? And then 3 threats. And when we talk about threats, that can be internal or external to the organization. I think about one thing that comes up quite often. I don't know if this impacts you all, but I hear sometimes charter schools could be a threat because they're pulling kids out from our district. So that could potentially be a threat if a new charter school comes in. So that's the thought. Like, what's 3 strengths, 3 weaknesses, 3 opportunities, 3 threats.
time.
All right. Y'all ready?
I'm stuck.
Oh. Huh. I need another minute. Well, it's hard to get to just 3. So we'll give you an opportunity to add an additional.
Okay.
All right. Brandon, you want to kick us off? As far as strengths, and what I'll ask you to do, we'll start with strengths, and we'll just go round robin. If somebody mentions a strength that you added on that you have on your list, say it anyway, because I want to put an asterisk. How many times is that being said? How many people think that this is a strength or a weakness or an opportunity or a threat? Okay, so, Brandon, strengths.
Have a diverse academic and extracurricular offerings, district and campus leadership with a commitment to continuous improvement.
Hold on.
Oh, you're right.
Slow down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm writing,
Oh.
as you're talking, I'm gonna type, but I'm not that fast. So, diverse academic and,
Extracurricular offerings,
okay. Okay,
district and campus leadership with a commitment to improvement,
district and leadership. District and leadership with a commitment.
to continuous improvement, and a strong community foundation.
Strong community foundation. Okay,
And then if we have some that are similar, do you want to hear it from us now or just when we all go through? our
when you
own?
go through, and then I'll put an asterisk. Thank you.
So you want everybody doing strengths? and then
Strengths,
we'll go
we're just
around
starting with
and-
strengths.
Okay.
Mhm. Right, Chris?
All right, so ditto to the diverse education opportunities, like manifested on my list as CTE is awesome, but,
Okay, yeah.
but same topic.
I'm gonna put in parentheses those CTEs, since it's very,
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
specific.
But it definitely deserves a check.
Yeah,
So, commitment by district leadership to continuous improvement, I also had.
Okay.
I did not have community, should have put community on here. But I had basically the heart and desire and commitment to the existing mission, vision, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
okay. Anyone?
I think we have great community partners, which is kind of in line with what Brandon was saying, but I just wrote down community partners.
Mhm.
I'm a lot more simple than these guys. I believe we provide excellent opportunities for, excellent academic opportunities or diverse academic opportunities for lots of kids.
Is that similar to diverse academic and?
It's similar, but you know, when you see that, like at graduation, when all these certifications that these kids get, which is in line with CTE,
Mhm.
I mean, it's just like, it shocks me how much we offer. And I've always told parents, I said, if you have a kid that's committed, you can obtain a great education at Belton ISD,
Mhm.
and you'll be ready to enter the college ranks. Although I think we can improve, but I think we have, relatively speaking, great facilities.
Mm. Okay. Great. Jeff?
On mine, I had leadership/retention. I mean, we have strong leadership, but we also have retention of leadership. We're not constantly switching leadership within the district, which causes chaos.
Mhm.
I have community. That
Mhm.
seems to be a common theme. And reputation. BISD has a strong reputation in Central Texas.
That's great. All right, Riley?
I think one of our strengths are our high schools. Similar to that are the selection of classes and the CTE that
Okay.
we have, just
That's
incredible. And then I put sufficient space, but similar to that our buildings are adequate. So, yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna put before we leave strengths, is there anything else you would add? Or want to add? And Dr. Golden, you'll do this with the leadership team.
Okay.
You'll be part of that group. Okay, we can come back to that. Weaknesses or challenges. We'll just keep going round and round. Brandon, kick us off.
Okay, I think, this probably applies to public schools in general, is sort of a perception of a decline in rigor or discipline. That might more appropriately be a threat, but that was. A resource limitations.
What was that one?
Resource limitations. And then we have, I guess, hotspots or campuses in the district that have some academic struggles, so.
Okay.
All right, some of these can always fit in multiple categories. Weakness, so right now, if you don't have a child in the district, you don't really know what's going on. Which also creates an opportunity, but, just
Okay.
listening for keystrokes. No.
Yeah, I wanna make sure I
That's okay,
capture
that's
it.
okay. I'm not just sitting. I think there are, I'm about to phrase this as an opportunity. Alignment from top to bottom, down to the individual classrooms is not consistent.
What do you mean by that, Chris?
So I think at this level, like the higher we are, the tighter the alignment is, right? But then as we get to the individual classroom, the alignment doesn't always, the understanding of why we're doing what we're doing isn't always there, right? And so an example would be, right, so we've made a massive push to become metrics driven, right? To collect metrics and be able to attack the each and every, right? But I think we have some pockets on some campuses that don't understand why we're doing that and are fighting that. And we're seeing issues there, right? And so the why, they don't understand the why everywhere. Yeah.
Good point.
And then I will say inconsistent behavior or discipline expectations. And discipline, I mean, like, I'm not meaning like the consequence of a behavior. I'm meaning like the ability to do what you need to do, right? And like keep your head about you, right? Inconsistent behavior and discipline expectations and potentially consequences.
Okay.
I'm on the same lines with the discipline issue. I mean, I'm older than everybody in here, so I'm, the way I looked at things is different than the way things are looked at now. I believe in more harsh penalties for kids not behaving. So maybe I'm not the one to speak to that right now. I thought about it too in terms of, we have so much talk about budget, and I don't even know if this is a weakness, but I've always hear about Belton being a rooftop community.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have hardly any industry here. It's all at Temple.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we educate 54% of the students live in Temple.
Oh,
So I think it creates a weakness, right, for us.
So how do you phrase that? How would you phrase that in sort of a
I don't know, it's just, when you class, I mean, there's districts that are laden with industry, and there's districts that are just rooftops, and we're rooftops. And that trickles down eventually.
Stakeholder kind of engagement, maybe not enough,
Yeah.
and not as many support. Our district
It's a
is.
different level of financial resources.
It is.
Yeah,
It
different
is.
level of financial.
And the
Nuclear power
other
plant
is
in your
the
district
impacts, which, you know,
'Cause it
it
takes the
bothers me
burden
every
off of
year
the
when we
local
talk about
taxpayer.
budget. Which is, you know, comes in with, I'll talk about it with threats, but I wish we could pay teachers more.
Excuse me. Teacher compensation.
Yes. Teacher compensation is, I don't wanna call it a weakness, because, you know, the district does good, but I wish we could do better.
Okay.
Weakness I have, well, not in order, but staff experience, just meaning we don't, and this is a statewide problem now, we don't have the depth of bench that we need anymore.
Yeah.
We have way too many young teachers, I know that sounds bad, but young teachers who also don't understand classroom management, they don't understand, you don't know what you don't know. And so I think staff experience is definitely, it's a hindrance. I think we can narrow down a lot of our problems to newer teachers, and even the fact that those coming out with non-education type degrees, they're never taught that stuff in college. They were never taught about how to manage a classroom, how to do this, and we lack depth. We lack depth of experience. Message delivery, I think every district is struggling in that now. We live in an instant gratification society of social media, and so you're constantly fighting to get the good news about your school out, or the good news about your company, because as soon as you're trying to do that, there's a whole bunch of other people on the other side trying to get the negative out. And that's a problem, and it's one that I don't know how we address, but I think it's real. It exists. You know, whether we like it or not, it's a real thing now. And the other one I think goes to what Chris said. I think exactly what he said. I think my verbiage is just different. And that is internal communication. You know, just he called it alignment. I call it internal communication. It's the same idea. That, you know, at certain levels, do they understand why it's being done? And I think that's a weakness we have. I see it because I see it in the mistakes that are made. A lot of them come back to internal communications, the fight against, well, why are you doing it? I don't understand why you're doing it. I don't want to do it on my campus. It's internal communication, or just, you know, like he said, alignment. It's the same thing.
And then this part is a weakness. I put basically that there's a dichotomous experience. I talked about high schools as a strength, and then we have schools on the other end. So we have A campuses, and then we have other campuses that are just performing poorly, most of them being elementary schools. And so it's a very dichotomous experience depending on where you live in the district. So call it misalignment or whatever. Same thing with the discipline, but specifically with student behaviors, more of the current concern there, that I don't think we're consistent and effective with well, yeah, anyways, I'll leave it at that. So yeah, that was pretty much it. I think I kind of put the elementary schools and then that dichotomous experience as one, but they're two different things in a way. So. I could even clarify that it's not all the elementary schools. We have some that are performing and doing terrific.
Outstanding.
And then some that are on the other end of the spectrum, but it's a big range.
Okay, all right. go to, oh, before we leave weaknesses, is there anything else anybody wants to add as we've sort of roundtabled this? Round robin. No. Opportunities. What do you see as potential opportunities? for the
On the
district?
strength of our community foundation, I think the opportunity exists to leverage our supporters to tell the BISD story. So like on the education foundation, our leadership, Ellen, and then our executive director came up with, just like a note card of like, hey, these are, when people ask you what BEF is, like tell them these three things. Like, we give out this much in scholarships, this much in grants, this is who we are. So I think the opportunity to kind of drive a positive message out to the groups, because we do have a really strong core of engaged stakeholders. To tell that story, and there's a limit on how much you can fight with people on the internet, but to make positive, like empower people with knowledge and positive comments and understand broader context of things and have that. So I think that's an opportunity to leverage that support and tell our story. So I put it as an opportunity, I'm not sure if that's where it belongs, but a pivot from a growth to an improvement mindset. And not that I ever felt like the district stopped caring about improvement, but I mean, from the time I was a student until, I don't know, 3 years ago, all we talked about was how fast Belton was growing and preparing and having to constantly play catch up just to deal with how many students were coming in. And that was just the reality of what the district had to deal with. But now we have that, we're not growing as fast, and so there's an opportunity to pivot and look back internally and how do we put it up within, because we're not having to tackle the growth challenge as much. And then I would say a maximize alignment of our budget and our goals with state funding. I mean, we just mentioned earlier, and they're doing the TIA. I think making sure that we're checking all the boxes so that we're maximizing our funding. We're putting the resources in the places that we're going to get evaluated on. And then I also, I guess I kind of tacked this onto the end. I don't know if it fits in there, but working with our college partners and to get maybe even some CC mark credits, but get students associate's degrees, kind of do stuff that is going to potentially, if we go right, could drive down costs for the district, but also, again, make the case for why you should come to Belton ISD. And again, building on our strength of our diverse academic and extracurricular offerings. We'll get into this, I'm sure everybody has later, but I think the way that we counter that is, here's all the stuff you can do at Belton ISD. There's a path for you here. There's a way for you to graduate with an associate's if you want to do that, to graduate with a marketable trade and go immediately get a great job. I think all of that is how we, it's just a great opportunity for us.
Do y'all partner with Temple for your college courses?
We're working really hard to grow that partnership.
Yeah. Do y'all have an early college high school?
No. But what we're working towards is, it doesn't necessarily have to be a TEA designated early college high school to provide our students with the experience of getting an associate's degree.
That's exactly
And we have that right now, but we're wanting to grow that. That's our work
That's
currently with Temple College.
That's great. All right.
All right, a lot of dittos here.
Okay.
The opportunity really to leverage our, parents, volunteers, community that want to participate, want to advocate. I mean, we've got just an army if we can get everybody mobilized. Opportunity, the educational alternatives, right? And you can look at educational alternatives in all the ways that Brandon just talked about it, right? Like we've got so many offerings, right, that we've got, but also educational alternatives from the standpoint of delivery methods, right? So I think there's an opportunity for us to look at different delivery methods, something other than a brick and mortar school potentially, to to add to the alternatives and opportunities we have. And then opportunity, I don't know, maybe I should have put this as a strength. We have the opportunity to really innovate in our educational practices and methods, in the classrooms. And I probably should have listed this as a strength. I think we've got some real pockets in our leadership that seem to be fearless when it comes to innovating and wanting to look at continuous improvement and not afraid to look at things a different way and to try and fail and fail fast and come back and improve. And so the opportunities, can we leverage that more widely to help drive the change that we're looking for?
That's good.
Some overlap for me. When I deal with problems in my own life, I always think about, well, I need to be creative, I need to be innovative. So we've got some issues some challenges that we've had recently that I think should spark some innovation in how we do things. How do we attract students to the ISD? Because like Brandon said, all we talked about was growth, 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 growth. During the pandemic, we grew 700 students or something like that during the pandemic, right? So this gives us an opportunity to think outside the box and say, well, how do we attract kids to this district? And how do we provide an opportunity that doesn't cost us an arm and a leg, but that we offer that they can't get at the charter school or the private school, right? And I think we're doing some of those things. This recent situation with Temple Municipal Airport, okay? I mean, when I saw that to me, that was big. I mean, that's innovative, right? With the challenge with the budget, I think I said this to Melinda one day about, there's got to be a silver lining there. And because we've had to go department by department, room by room, trying to cut costs here and there, we're going to learn from that in terms of what we can actually live without, right? It makes us look at things closer, right? So there's got to be a silver lining to that. And Melinda's done an outstanding job, she and her staff, and trying to figure out how do we manage this huge problem we have, okay? You have people complaining, but nobody talks about a solution, right? And we have a real problem, and we're addressing it, and we're taking care of it. And along the way, there may be a casualty here or there, right? But that's just the way it is. And we're going to make some hard decisions, and we're doing it. But at the end of the day, we're gonna come out on top, okay? And that's what I talk about, innovation. Let's see. Same thing about providing, it gives us an opportunity to provide more educational opportunities for people that live in our area. Which there's some overlap to what Brandon and Chris are saying.
Okay. Thank you.
I think there's a lot of overlap, and I think part of the way I'm going to say it will come out differently, but I think it's the same. One opportunity, something that we've really done a good job of, but it's going to continue to be our opportunity, is to grow the programs that we have within the school. I know a lot of that falls under the idea of CTE umbrella, but it's not just CTE, it's all of the programs that we have. Just in my decade of being here, to see, that's just such an opportunity. Because we know that kids that are involved in these programs graduate at a higher rate, they have a better school experience. It's not just athletics, it's not just music, there's so many things that's such an opportunity. And if you ever listen to some of the teachers and the sponsors of these programs that are out there, they've got such great ideas. It's just a matter of getting them off the ground and helping them grow. This one's now been said by everybody. I put down innovative learning. I guess we're all kind of saying the same
Yeah.
thing there, so I'll skip on. The other one that I see as an opportunity that we've really started in the last 2 years, I guess, is the increase in critical thinking that we've brought into the lower classroom levels. Going to these classrooms, because that's one of the biggest problems we have in our, in our workforce is people who are great students, but they don't have any critical thinking ability. They're really good at school, but they've never had to solve a problem. It had to be an equation of A, B, and C versus I need you to get from here to here and tell me how you got here. And we do that now. I mean, the campus visits I've done, all the way down to the grade level where they have to actually think about, okay, what am I doing instead of just being a great test taker. So that's my.
Okay, mine's hard to bring up without kind of bringing up one of the main threats and concerns first is the, private schools and that being a threat to public education. So the first word that I put was innovation, and they'll come with disruptive innovation. If we don't match with innovation, I think we're in big trouble. We've done some of that recently, and this goes to, man, my thoughts are jumbled on this, but one of the opportunities is a thought of that the obstacle is the way. That sometimes when there is something like that, it spurs the innovation, and I think we've already started experiencing some of that. And it goes in we now could have more alignment in our GT offerings with some moves that were made, and decreasing the dichotomous experience that some schools may not have had as far as GT. So really that innovation is, and so the threat actually can be the opportunity for us in spurring and actually driving that innovation. I know that's kind of a long way to answer that, but so the innovation was the first one, thriving with the competition. Continued partnerships with the college and career opportunities. We're already doing great there, but those high school experiences that we have are going to maintain students. It's that where we're poorly performing that we need to focus on, but those can be opportunities again, like I said. And then the third one was behavior, just student behavior. We focus so much on it's almost surprising to me that as we go through, it's all we must have missed these math lessons in earlier grades, and there's very little focus on the behavior in the classrooms, and I think we've missed a very important piece there. That if we could improve that, it will also correlate and improve our outcomes.
Okay, any other opportunities you want to add to the list?
Jody, Belton has a significant minority population, demographic-wise. Many Hispanic students here. I mean, Texas is 42% Hispanic now, Latino. Yeah, bunch. And we have a number of, and I've been here all my life, right? And we have a number of them living in the southern part of the district. They attend South Belton Middle School, Southwest, right? Some of the schools in that part of the district. So one of the opportunities, and Dr. Golden and I talked a little bit about it, is which is we're going to talk more. I'm going to talk more about it with the threats, but with the teacher recruitment and retention, it's an opportunity for us to be innovative in how we recruit teachers to the district, and we bring in the Latino teacher that graduated from UTSA or UT El Paso or whatever, because the strength that we have here in this community is just. Everyone can say that this is a great place to live. It's a great place to live and learn. right? And it's a great place to raise a family. So if I'm down there trying to recruit a 22-year-old teacher that's gonna graduate from UT Brownsville, then I'm gonna tell that teacher how great it is to live here. And that, the pay's pretty good. And you're gonna love living here. You're not too far from Austin. You're not too far from Dallas. So I think it's gonna help us, in our recruiting efforts to be more innovative with that and help these kids in the southern part of our district.
That's good.
This is a great place to the strengths list too, though.
Hmm?
This is a great place to live.
Oh.
Right, add that to, make sure that gets on the
Yeah.
strengths list.
I will. It's on.
It's 6:56, so I just wanted us to have a time check real quick. I know we said one more category to go.
One more category.
Okay.
Threats.
Y'all are doing great.
And
Thank
then
y'all.
we'll wrap it up. All right. Brandon, you want to kick us off?
Sure. A threat would be, I think, reputational risk or a loss of community trust or support. And then the next two, I guess, just both in two charter or public schools. And the first one being loss of our high-quality staff, and then loss of students.
Say the last two again.
Loss of high-quality staff
Okay.
to charter or private schools, and then loss of students to charter or private schools.
You're losing staff to charter schools?
The threat
We
could
could.
be.
Oh, the threat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
I don't know if we're currently having that, but there's about to be a lot of cash infused on the other side of that equation.
I apologize. What was the last one you said?
Loss of students.
Loss of student, decline in enrollment. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
And you get to go first for all.
Okay. All right. Next.
Threat, lack of understanding or support from certain segments of the community, to include, one of my weaknesses, right, that folks that don't have kids here, to, I would say, just the current political environment, to, even some of our local leaders, given the fact that we span 3 municipalities, right? And some of our local leaders understand more about other districts and less about our district sometimes, right? And so I think that's potentially a threat. The educational alternatives, right? So you just talked about staff, right? But I think just in general, right? So a threat would be accepting the behaviors of folks who aren't aligned with what we're trying to do. So, culture is what you accept. And so if we have, and I'll just say staff as an example, right? So if we have staff that aren't aligned with the beliefs, accepting that is a threat. And then additionally, I think we've got some environmental factors that are potentially a threat. This is going to sound kind of weird, but the work that's about to be done for I-35, as an example, I think is actually a threat to us, at least in the short term.
Interesting. Okay. Mike, Nate?
Threats, the legislature, incredibly grateful for the money that they allocated to districts. For us, it was what, $7 million? Right. But, I say this to folks if they ask me about funding, well, I'm glad I got some money, right? We needed it. But, it's kind of like I needed $100 and you gave me a $20 bill.
Yeah.
I'm still way short, right? And I'm way short not because of things that we did, but because of a lot of things that we had no control over.
Right.
So I'm still concerned about funding, in the next session, and we're trying to prepare for that. Second thread is just the ongoing, just unrelentless rhetoric concerning public schools, so much of it is false, right? And then people don't understand that there's a domino effect with that. So if you start attacking public education, can you imagine what's going to happen to all the kids that don't get a good education, that can't afford to go to a private school, right? How many kids at Southwest can go to a private school? It's probably this, right? Same thing with South Belton Middle School. So one thing happens in a public school and it gets national attention, right? Things happen not just in public schools, they happen in all schools. They happen in private schools too, right? People don't stop being people, okay? I don't want to get on a soapbox here, but I get sick of that, and it doesn't seem to be stopping. And people can help. The local leaders can help with that, to help quell some of this negative rhetoric that is talked about in public schools. The other thing, of course, is, and I don't know that it's a threat for us, but I'm always concerned about teacher retention. A lot of folks don't talk about this, but not this past session, but the session before that, where the governor wanted a focus group to study teacher retention and recruitment, to find out what the problem was. And then the results came out, I don't know, March or February of the session before that, and said the number one was pay, okay? But nothing was addressed in that session, right, because of the vouchers and all that. So if your own group said pay is number one, well then give us the money to pay. So I'm still concerned about that. I'm hopeful that will change.
And it did in the last session. I mean,
it did. We got some money. That's what and we're grateful for that, right? But I'm always concerned about what's up ahead, and we're planning for that. So.
Well, I'll echo something he just said. Financial pressures, they're a threat. They're real. There's no getting around that. Another one I think goes more to, because what I'm going to say is it's just a changing landscape of education right now. And I'm not talking about the private and the charters. Actually, they don't bother me that much. Taxpayer money going to them does, but I'm not worried about them, because what we offer Belton they can't offer. They just literally cannot. But it's the changing landscape that he's talking about of around the whole system. I'm not that old, but I remember growing up in a town, you had your superintendent, your mayor, your preachers, your doctors. These were the people that everybody knew who they were, and they looked up to them in that community. And they were held to standards, and everybody knew. I know in this community, it would have been Mr. Pirtle. In mine, it was Dr. Chancellor. I mean, everybody knew who those people were in a community. And there was respect, and that's eroded. It's for whatever reason, like he said, one small thing happens in a school, and it can happen in California, but we're going to hear about it here like it's happening here. There's just been an erosion of education, and this is from the top down. It's a changing landscape that we seem to have there's almost a attack on academics just in general right now, and that's a dangerous place to be when you're not prioritizing education the way that we always have. And it's just from the top down. Communities just don't, it's not the way it once was. It's a changing landscape. We've got to figure out how to get people back in. And it goes to my third one, and it's something I've always worried about with Belton ISD. Same thing I worry about my own, where I came from, and that is apathy within our community. If you are in a community that had a bad school system, people know that it was a bad school system, and if you watch those people move into a good school system, how happy they are to be there. Belton has had it good for a very long time, and there's a certain amount of apathy within this community, and I feel it, and I've seen it to where it's almost like, well, Belton's always going to be okay. We don't need to worry about this, and we don't need to worry about that. No, actually you do, because the attacks that come on public ed, you need to pay attention to those. That Belton ISD is this community. It is what it is. And I think there's an apathy here that it's been so good for so long, people don't believe that can be taken away. And it can be taken away very quickly.
Yeah. Well said. All right, Randy.
Yes, off of that, like I mentioned, disruptive innovation is my main concern. companies that come up with that are like, they talk about like Sears or Blockbuster or Kodak, companies that don't ever exist because they weren't willing to change, and they think, well, we've got it, we've got this, and I probably jumping on with that apathy kind of thing, like, man, our high schools rock, right? And these programs that we offer in the college and career readiness and things like that. And if we focus too much on those strengths, there's always an entry point. And like I mentioned, the threat is the elementary schools, and that's an entry point, is what I think for that. The second one, loss of control with poor performance. I worry about the state taking over if we don't improve, especially a particular school. Or not only that, but there's also all these extra requirements that we have to do if our schools aren't performing. So to me, that's a threat. It takes extra time and things where we could be more proactive, instead we're reactive. And then third one, just children being unprepared for the future, for those that are not thriving.
Well, you go back to your first one, disruptive innovation. That's the positive, right? Like we want disruption in the system. Like if nothing changes, nothing changes.
So disruptive innovation is when the risk, and the reason it's a threat to us is when we don't pay attention to that, when someone else comes, when there is an entry point. And there already is, we're two or three steps down the line where there's an immediate entry point with private schools. And I don't see them as completely the threat, but the threat is if we don't innovate and if we don't make changes, and if we have that apathy, like I was talking about, of saying, hey, we've got this down. Like no one can. I mean, I could say that confidently, probably arrogantly. I don't think private schools right now or charter schools in this area can compete with our high schools and what we offer. But if we focus too much on that and don't, and if the entry point is these schools are struggling, then that creates a vulnerability and a threat to us.
Yeah.
But we can see that as a threat or an opportunity if we're willing to innovate along with it. So I know that's
No, that helps. Okay, any other threats that anybody wants to add?
I worry what's gonna happen to special ed students. You know, I mean, they're not, I don't see them going into private schools, that kind of thing, you know, and I worry about funding, you know, that we can keep up and keep helping these kids the way that they need to be assisted.
I feel like we can't end on threats, like I gotta go back to the strength.
Let's do it.
Maybe this is covered, I don't know, but our sticky programs, right? So Jeff started to talk about this a little bit, right? The FFAs, the fine arts, all of the sticky programs, right, that are not necessarily academic, but the reasons why kids come to school. We've got absolutely amazing sticky programs. So we want to make sure that gets captured. And then we've got some amazing pockets of absolutely infectious passion, for our staff and what they're doing. And just to call out an example, like History Fair is sort of the recent example, right? Like we've got staff that is just so infectiously passionate about participation in that. That's not the only example, but we've got some great pockets of that if we could bottle it and get it to everybody. Yeah.
And I've got to say something like Chris is saying. Yeah, we've talked about some of the challenges, right? But Jeff said it the other day in a meeting. If you haven't gone to a production that's done by one of these programs, like Melinda and I were at the Belton High School, and I'm sitting there thinking, man, these high school kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, and I'm thinking, how much work went into that? And then the teacher, how much time do they have to spend with these kids? It's just, it's amazing, the talent that we have that we have here in our schools, from the top to the bottom. You know, you might talk about, you see something on Facebook that's negative. Yeah, there might be one negative thing going on, but, you know, there's 350 that are positive. You know, why don't you talk about that? So I get sick of that too. But, because this
Okay.
yeah, it's,
I think we all do.
yeah, sometimes we gotta talk about it. We've got a great system here, right? Jeff said it. You know, Belton's always been known for its schools, and it will continue to be known for its schools. We've got challenges, but we're gonna overcome them.
All right, well, we've captured, board perceptions on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Next week, we'll get our senior leadership team, community advisory, the community perceptions. And we'll start to look at, are there some common themes that are emerging in here that we could capture as a potential strategic objective? And we'll bring that back to you, so you'll get to see everybody's comments and where everyone landed in terms of their SWOT.
Any other questions
that-
for Jody
that is
or
done.
me
We are
before
done.
we
For today.
close that for tonight? No?
I think it's a great
Okay.
thing that you're doing here with this.
I'm incredibly excited, hopeful, and excited to get feedback. I think hearing feedback is super important, and I think that's important in the school district. I think it's important for the board, so just excited to engage in the process, and thanks for getting us started tonight.
Yeah, happy to do it. Looking forward to next week. 60 people, that's a great group, so we are going to
We
have
might
some
be
fun.
62 or 63.
Might be, okay.
Just not 67.
All right. We need to adjourn.
Well, that concludes our
I had to
board
get it in.
workshop this evening. There being no further business, we are adjourned at 7:13 PM.